Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me to this beautiful campus, Wofford College. This is amazing. I was just telling earlier to a few of our colleagues that I had never been at Wofford College, and this is the first time. Now that I see the campus and kind of see you and kind of interact with the students and faculty and some of the people in administration, I'm thinking, where have I been all these years? So it's certainly a pleasure to be here. Before I go on, I want to thank Dr. Bastani for, where did you find all those lies about me that you said earlier? So thank you so much. Ron Robinson had the pleasure of meeting earlier and having lunch with, and better than lunch, I was able to, he was able to work me in his class, which was fantastic. Wonderful, wonderful, intelligent students. Dr. Mackey Sally, that we met earlier, thank you. Dr. Dan Mathewson, Dr. Dwayne Pruitt, and of course, our wonderful AV specialist, Martin, who brought me to you this afternoon. So I will try during my conversation not to insult your intelligence by basically thinking that you are already a supporter of human rights. Anybody not supporting? If not, you can leave now. Okay, because if you're a supporter of human rights, you have just burdened yourself. So in the past, since September to be exact, and more precisely September 19, 2022, we are witnessing something in Iran. And they're calling it the Women Life Freedom Movement. And I'll tell you why and what has become of the Iranians and Iranian society that they're pouring onto the streets, and there's so much support outside of Iran. So, and everything that I tell you today, I want you to fact check me. Does the internet work well in here? If so, just fact check me if I'm giving you wrong information. Raise your hand, call me to the carpet, because this is a college and I need to learn something from you as well. So we're calling this the genesis of the recent revolution. But before we go on, I want to wish you Happy New Year. The Persian New Year is called Nowruz, or New Day, which correlates every year with the spring, first day of spring equinox. So when the season changes and there's a birth of a new era, that's when Nowruz comes into the picture. And as you know, Nowruz started Monday, March 20th at 4:24 p.m. This is a piece of culture that the Islamic Republic of Iran has been trying to strip the people away from for about 20 or maybe 44 years to be more precise. And they have not been able to do it yet. So let's get the name right. We live in the South. I've lived in the South longer than any place else. So I am a proud Southern Iranian. Can we say that? So we have seen Iran, Iran. So I want to get the pronunciation correctly. So it's going to be Iran. And Iran is in the Middle East. It's one of the largest countries there. To just give you a geographical perspective, at the northwest, we are near Turkey. On the other side, Turkmenistan, Iraq, Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan. That makes Iran. And of course, the hotbed of everything is the Persian Gulf. So that's geographically where Iran is located. The current population of Iran is slated at 82 million people. There are 8 million Iranians who live outside of Iran. And the largest population concentration of Iranians outside Iran is in Los Angeles than it is in Toronto, Canada. So What do Iranians want? What's wrong with them? They want freedom. They want freedom to decide where to go to school, what to wear, what to eat, what to do in their private quarters. Why is that? Are those even topics of our discussion? Because the government has been meddling in each and every one of those daily affairs. So Islamic Republic of Iran and freedom, they just have a problem with one another. Freedom does not understand the Islamic Republic. The Islamic Republic has never understood freedom. So in every step of the way, they want to basically destroy freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and on and on. So, but the Iranians have had enough. 4.5 decades is enough. And what they want to do is they want to take matters into their hands. And of course, with the support of the world, we can accomplish that. So what did Iran get, or how did it get here in 44 years? Sometimes I have to look at my own slides to know what I'm going to talk about. So a lot of you know, I apologize if I'm out of the frame, those of you who were recording this. The revolution happened in 1979, February of 1979. The revolution happened. So February 1st, Ayatollah Khomeini, who was the spiritual leader of the Shiite Islam, returns to Iran since 1963. During the Shah, they exiled him first to Syria, then he made his way over to Iraq, because there's a seminary in Najaf, Iraq, which is the hotbed of Shiite Islam. After Qom, Iran, that is the second largest place that they train clergymen, men, not women, to promote, to teach, and to influence Shiite Islam. So February 11th, the Islamic Revolution happens. We insist that this is not an Iranian revolution. It happened in Iran, but it's not an Iranian revolution because it basically had no nationalistic values. This was a religious takeover. So there was a theater, thousands of people poured onto the streets to bring this man to power. So it's so ironic that this place is called the Freedom Square. And all these people are coming to welcome him. And very little did they know that their freedom is going to be over pretty soon. March 8, women poured onto the streets opposing the mandatory compulsory veiling. And according to some statistics that I've run into, more than 800,000 people poured onto the streets. This is roughly about a month and a half after Khomeini came to Iran. March 31st, there was a referendum to declare Iran as Islamic Republic. And people were excited to have a democratic nation. They poured in, they were forced, and actually some of them made some lucrative money to walk up to the boxes and put their votes in. And Iran was declared as Islamic Republic. May 5th, Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps was established, and this was one of Khomeini's dreams, because Khomeini did not trust the classic military, which is supposed to defend the territory and defend the sovereignty of a nation, like the classical or the classic military that we have in the United States. As you've noticed, one of the things that they do not do, they don't get involved in the internal goings-on in a nation. So, but that's not what Khomeini wanted. November 4th, the US Embassy is seized by the students. I put the students in quotations because the vast majority of them were not university students. Some of them have been in power for the past 42, 43 years. So not many of you are old enough to remember the hostage taking. Let's see, Ron Robinson, he's only 39. Let's see, anyway. So, but that's when this embassy was seized, and hostages were kept for 444 days. And this is one of the shameful pictures. I put it in there to kind of remind myself that that revolution was never a people's revolution. In 1980, April 7th, U.S. formally severs diplomatic relations with Iran. July 27th of 1980, Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi dies in Cairo, Egypt. So Shah left before Khomeini came in, and he was exiled, then sent back to Cairo. He was here in the United States and getting some medical attention for a while. Then once they knew that he had cancer and he's supposed to die, they send him to Cairo. And Iranians every year, they have a pilgrimage. They go to Cairo to visit his grave. September 22nd, Iraq invades Iran. Saddam Hussein thought that, well, Iran is weak now, the Shah is gone, a whole bunch of uneducated mullahs have taken over. This is the time to answer his dreams of expansionism, and very little did we know that even that invasion was orchestrated by outside of Iran and outside of Iraq. Now that the CIA documents are out, this was all orchestrated by two countries in the world, United States and England. So this war goes on for 8 years. The United States was selling arms like you've never seen before to both parties, to Iraqis and the Iranians. Of course, Iranians under the table in the black market, and you know what that means? That means that some good, if it's worth $1 million, then the Iranians were paying $5 million for it. So this was a pivotal moment in the recent Iranian history because it gave the mullahs the chance to have, as I said earlier in Ron's class, that wagging the dog. Wagging the dog was the war. So everybody would pay attention to the war and participate in war while the regime of Iran was basically building their political structure. So January 20th on 1981, all remaining US hostages were released after 445 days of captivity after Tehran and Washington conclude the Algiers occurred. Again, some of you are old enough, you remember that. I clearly remember that. I was maybe 2 years old at that point. So the agreement was that the US was supposed to unfreeze Iranian assets, lift the US sanctions on Iran, and establish a tribunal for billions of dollars to be released to Iran, and basically two countries were supposed to benefit from that. September 22nd, 1980 to August 20th, 1988. Those are the exact dates for the Iran-Iraq war that took the lives of, according to, again, some accounts, I believe the CIA puts it at 1 million people. Both countries say 1 million per side. So that's 2 million casualties, where during the Iran-Iraq war, the total population of Iran and Iraq would have been about 80, 85 million people at that point. And it is estimated that between 50,000 and 100,000 Kurdish people were killed by Iraqi forces during the series of campaigns that took place in 1988. When we get a chance, it's not in my presentation, but I would love to talk about the Kurdish involvement in this whole thing. Not because I'm Kurdish, I am Kurdish, but that's not the reason. There's a geopolitical reason as well as economic reasons that the Kurdish people are involved in all of this. So what has the Iranian regime done for Iran? Let's be fair. Again, everything that I'm telling you, please fact check me, because I'm an Iranian American, so I might be jaded a little bit, I might be prejudiced, I might be wanting to tilt your view and your perspective to have more sympathy for the Iranian people. Actually, yeah, that's what I'm doing. Okay? But I'm doing that based on facts, not ideological belief. I checked out my, I don't even know what my ideology is, but I checked out, all of that before I walked in. So we can have a scientific and honest conversation. Here's what the regime of Iran has brought to people. First of all, they call themselves a republic, okay? According to any English professors, English language majors in here, you probably know this a lot better than me. The definition of a republic is a government in which supreme power resides in a body of citizens entitled to vote and is exercised by elected officers and representatives responsible to them and governing according to law. None of this has happened in Iran. Everybody that goes into the Congress, the Majlis of Iran, has to be checked, double-checked, triple-checked first to make sure that they are understanding the Islamic doctrine forced upon people by the Islamic regime. Okay? So to me, that is really not a free election. One of the most famous thing about the Persian culture is the Persian carpet, then is the Persian cat. Okay? So, and when they say red carpet, rolling out the red carpet, the mullahs rolled out the Persian carpet, and you can see by this depiction, by this cartoon, exactly what happened. As the Ayatollah Khamenei is smiling, people are dying on a daily basis. So, start from basics. 52% inflation. This is Iran's Center for Statistics. 52%. Can you wrap your head around 8% that we're dealing with in America? When was the last time you bought a dozen of eggs? I know your students thinking, eggs, dozen, what is that? I go to the cafeteria. By the way, you have Burwell, am I right? It's a beautiful place. I had 3 grits and shrimp today. It was awesome. So, 52% inflation. Each dollar is worth 49,000 tumans in open market. I just checked that this morning. So, bless you. When I came from Iran, each dollar was 7 tumans. That was 107 years ago, by the way. Okay? Now it's 49,000. Before this revolution happened, each dollar, which was just astronomical by any measure, each dollar was only 20,000 tuman. And people were just saying, oh my God, how are we going to live? Where are we going to buy goods? Who can afford eggs, chicken, bread, water? Almost 50% unemployment, according to IRNA, which is an official publication by the Islamic Republic. This information is a little old. It's about a month and a half old. So I'm assuming that it could be at 52, 53% right now. 39% of the Iranian population live under the poverty line, according to the Ministry of Finance of Islamic Republic. They live under harsh economic sanctions courtesy of the Islamic Republic. Why? I'll tell you some statistics toward the end of my presentation, because the Iranian government, it is one of the largest, or maybe the largest, supporter of terrorism around the world. And they don't play by the books. They want to have atomic bomb and all of that. They don't play by the book. They disregard United Nations regulations, and on and on and on. For years they've been doing that. There's an oil embargo, skyrocketing price of goods, no timely delivery of wages. Okay? My brother-in-law recently got a job after 7 years of looking for a job. And he was a chief financial officer of several reputable companies. He finally got a job. I was so excited. After I congratulated him, you know what was the second question I asked him? Can you guess? Can anybody guess? Second question I would ask a man who got a job after 7 years. Are you getting paid? Will you get paid at the end of the month? You can certainly have a job. I have a great friend who is a university professor, but she has not gotten paid for 6 months now. 6 months. So I don't know how people can live. So 80% of nations' economic affairs is controlled by the Islamic Republic Guards Corps. It's a terrorist organization. We've been working very hard in Europe. A lot of Iranians have been working very hard to convince the European Parliament to name this organization a terrorist organization. Once they name that, all of the economic relationship with Iran are going to be severed because of that, according to international law. Lack of effective management, obviously. Fraud, stealing, misappropriation, all over the place. Monopoly. There's a total monopoly by that terrorist group across, not only in Iran, but also in Lebanon, some parts of Iraq, some parts of Yemen, some parts of Afghanistan. Okay, that was bad news about the economy. And everybody here is educated. Economics have a lot to do with social relations, right? So, no freedom of expression. You're going to be democratic and do it my way. That's what they've been asking for. Be democratic, do it my way. There has been gender apartheid, that I like to call it. And you understand what apartheid means. You understand what gender is. So women, in essence, are second-class citizens in Iran. So if I'm a female and I want to leave the country to go visit my cousins in Dubai, visit people in Turkey, Europe, if I do not have the permission of my husband, I will not be able to leave. That's the law. That is the law of the land. That's just one thing. If I'm in a marital relationship and that severs and we're going to be divorced, if I'm a woman, I will only get 50% of what the man would get. So if we sell the house, forgive me for being simplistic. Please forgive me. I'm just trying to illustrate a point. If you're selling a house for $300,000, $150,000 goes to the husband, $75,000 goes to the woman. What about the other $75,000? Goes back to the guy. That's the law of the land. Again, check me out on this. It's online. It's not that I'm so smart. It's online. You can do all this. Morality police to control women. Why in 21st century do we have the right to tell a woman what to wear, where to go, what not to do, and force it on them? Why? In the 21st century. And I'm not a male basher. I'm really a heterosexual male. You don't know that, but I do. Okay? I look at my mother. I looked at my grandmother. I look at my female colleagues. I look at my female students. I look at my female friends. And I'm thinking, they can do 10 things at the same time. But while I'm a man, I'm listening to a cell phone, and I can't do anything else. Why am I more superior than a woman is? Look at all the managers that we have. Women are excellent managers. Not that we're bad, but I'm just, again, illustrating a point without bashing any other gender, that who gives the right to a man, especially to institutionalize gender apartheid? And mind you, this is under the name of God. Okay? So if you read all the major books, as I have, not saying I'm good at it, but I've read them, nowhere have I come across as strongly as some portion of Quran to say that women are not going to have equal rights. And that has been pushed and pushed and pushed by the Iranian government. And you know what? I am proud to tell you that the Iranian youth, female youth, they're not putting up with that anymore. They have nothing to lose. The morality police in Iran is one of the most equipped police forces in the entire world. Check me out on that. But this 14-year-old, 15-year-old, this freshman college student is going to jump on the military truck and stripping the veil off and then freeing her hair. This is so profound. If you're not from that region, if you're not from Iran, I never lived under the Islamic regime. I've been here too long, maybe. But that's a death wish. Meaning that when you decided to jump on that truck, you said goodbye to life. And many have. Many have perished because of that. Child labor, extensively. Heavy security across the nation. Dictatorial governments are afraid of their own shadows. So of course they're going to be scared. Educational institutions are forced to teach Islamic values. This young woman who introduced me, and thank you for that wonderful introduction that I did not deserve, this young woman studied under those circumstances. She's a physics major, so I think you can say that she's really smart. Okay? But in order for her to go to college, first she had to know the Islamic values of the Ayatollah Khomeini and Khamenei and all those people. Okay? That's like Compass. That's like SAT. That's like the entrance exam to a university. Iran occupies the 6th place in the world for the number of political prisoners that they hold. Gross violations of human rights. This is a little dark, so please forgive me what I'm about to tell you, so I hope I don't disturb you. But they have been, one of the latest tactics that they've used, they target young women and shoot them in the eye. Shoot them in the eye in a very close distance. What they have done is, I think if you kill somebody, you put them out of their misery, right? But they don't want to do that. They want to leave a mark on you so you can remember them for the rest of your life. Why? Control. So you know that you're not supposed to mess with this government. One of the highest executions, public hanging globally. Continuing on social political, one of the largest drug cartels in the world. It was just 2 days ago that I saw in the Washington Post, it was reported that Iran now knowingly, like it's just a public information now, that it's one of the largest drug cartels in the world. Hostage taking, we already know that. You're American, so you already know that we took hostages for 400, I had nothing to do with that. 444 days. Anytime anything happens, especially when it comes to some of the anti-American rhetoric, the Iranian government officials or the Islamic regime's officials start announcing out publicly that, oh, if you want to mess with us, we're going to come and capture a whole bunch of you, then we're going to ask $20 million for each. Even mafia didn't do that. Even mafia bosses were a lot kinder than that. If you didn't mess with their territory, they had nothing to do with you. In fact, they'd buy you dinner, lunch. Okay? Terror raids against opponents of the regime, including Iranian nationals. Year after year after year. Meddling in political affairs of other countries. Providing clean water to the neighboring countries despite shortage. Why is that a political issue? We're talking about the Middle East. There are 2 huge deserts in the middle of Iran. So water is more important than gold to the Iranians, to the people of that region. Sweet, clean, purified water goes to Kuwait, goes to Iraq, goes to Yemen, goes to Lebanon. So they can have these forces there controlled by the Iranian regime. So whenever the Iranian regime wants to create some noise and some dismay for some, the big political forces in the world, they can hire, these are mercenaries for hire. Providing electricity to Iraq and neighboring countries, providing a safe harbor for terrorists. When they told me that Osama bin Laden lived in Iran for a little bit, those of you who are young, you don't know who Osama bin Laden is, we put a label on him that he was one of the think tanks behind the 9/11 attacks. If he was not the think tank, he definitely had a lot to do with it. Let's put it this way, okay? So it was a safe harbor for Osama bin Laden in Iran, in eastern Iran, in Khorasan, for a while. And the Iranian regime has been a destabilizing force in the Middle East for 44 years, especially in the past 10 years. Giving away natural resources to China, Russia, Yemen, Lebanon, Syria. As we speak, the Iranian regime and the Chinese government have made an agreement to scrape off Persian Gulf, natural resources from the Persian Gulf, and travel it and take it over to China. Because some of the fish that exist in the Persian Gulf is one of a kind in the world. My southern friends, Iranian southern friends, used to always tell me, oh my gosh, if you like fish, southern fish is the only kind you should eat. And I never understood what that meant. Still don't. The Chinese government does. So the IRGC is a terrorist organization. I don't think we need to convince anybody of that. So these guys are involved in financial, military, personnel, and training assistance to Syria, Hezbollah of Lebanon, Yemenis fighters, Iraqi Shiites, Afghan groups, and other terrorist groups. And this is what they do to their own people. Look at that woman surrounded by how many morality police? What is this picture telling you? Can someone tell me? What does that picture convey to you? Anybody? Okay, let me ask you a question. What does that picture convey to you?
Control.
Control. Control of what?
The people.
Yeah. Do you see fear in that? Do you see fear in that photograph? Whose fear? The young woman? No. Government. They're so scared of a young woman who is not armed, and she doesn't look like a karate kid, right? All these people are surrounding her. It's the fear. So, Iranians have had it. The protests began. Need to be mindful of my time. So, fast forward to 2009, there's a green movement that people thought that, through reforms, perhaps they might be able to influence the government to become a little more diplomatic, allow a little more rights, okay? And women played a huge, huge role in that back in 2009. Look at this picture. The person they're supporting is the former prime minister, the last prime minister of Iran. A series of nationwide civil unrest in Iran, sometimes known as the Bloody November, happened in 2019 and 2020, initially caused by 50 to 200% increase in fuel prices, killing 1,500 people. 2020, estimated killing of 150 people. Again, they poured onto the streets demanding more rights. And notice, the gaps are getting closer and closer and closer. January 11, 2020, they shut down a Ukrainian flight 752, and 167 passengers and crew members died. None of those people look like terrorists to me. A lot of exchange students going to Canada, going to Ukraine, going to Europe, and some people visiting family and such. Protests continued to year 2021, January 3rd, 21, when hundreds of sectors took to the streets, the biggest second wave of protests since September 2019. IRGC's assistance to Syria, Yemen, and Lebanon, as we said, is more important to this government than providing rights to their own people. So the Iranian government says, you know what? We don't care if the Iranians are not supporting us. We have Syrians. We have the Syrians that support us. We have the Lebanese that support us, which is fake anyway. So the IRGC is continuing its assistance to the Russian-Ukrainian war, and EU expected to sanction the IRGC. I believe that's happened. Entities over drones sent to Russia. One of the demonstrations we had in Charlotte, I invited the Ukrainian friends, pardon me, to join us. None except 3 people accepted my invitation. There are close to 3,500 Ukrainians in Charlotte. I went to speak at their church. About half of them kind of turned away from me because I went there as an Iranian. Why? Because the drones are killing their brothers and sisters. They're killing their school members. They're killing teachers, blowing up hospitals. Why? Because Russia is the closest supporter of the Iranian regime as I stand in front of you. And China has come really fast. So they can protect the Iranians because the West is not willing to do it as much. So this brings us to the fall of 2022. Okay? Women Life Freedom Movement. A young Kurdish woman, same age as some of our beautiful students here, comes from Kurdistan, Iran, to visit a university. How many of you remember, how many colleges did you guys visit before you came to Wofford? Right? This was one of those deals. You know, you go to USC, you go to Wofford, you go to Converse, you go to UNCC and think, no, Wofford is the best place to be. That's where you ended up, right? She tried to do the same thing. So the morality police approaches her and says that your hijab your mandatory veiling is a little off place. Your hair is showing too much. She disagrees. They arrest her, throw her in a van, bang her head against the interior of the van 20 times. This is all reported. She has a hemorrhage. She goes to the hospital. 3 days later, she dies. And that sparks a revolution. In Kurdistan, Iran, where the women's life movement began, because there's a Kurdish poet who fights for the Kurdish rights. And he came up with that about 7 years ago, came up with that slogan. And they picked it up. So within days, the entire Iran was ablaze. Everybody took to the streets. And this movement was born. That young woman's name is Mahsa Jina Amini. What happened was September, sorry about the misspell up there, September 16, 2020. So this women life freedom movement, Mahsa Amini is the signature name for that. So if you go online and punch in Mahsa Amini, a whole bunch of the world of information will come up. As I was telling the class this afternoon, the most beautiful thing that you see is that women are in the forefront of this movement. Think about the Middle East. Middle East, though cradle of civilization, but women have always been to be forced to be second-class citizens. Women are taken to the streets. They have nothing to lose. And I think undoubtedly this revolution is going to come to fruition. And this revolution is going to set a huge, beautiful, fresh precedence in the Middle East. The Middle East is going to be a beautiful place again. Remember, we had a slogan back a few years ago, "Make America Great Again." I don't want to go there, but we want to we want to make Iran great as it was. All right. So, and of course, the people outside of Iran, they can't take it anymore. People like myself and Dr. Bastani. This is a depiction. This is a photograph in Berlin, Germany. These are all in the support of the revolution. And that person in the middle is the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, hand in hand with the Iranian activists supporting the Iranian revolution. So, but Iran does not, the regime does not back down, right? So they execute 2 more men, detain more people. 517 people have been killed so far. That number, unfortunately, is 600 plus right now. And Iranian government continues brutal crackdown on women life freedom movement. And as I said, now they're targeting people's eyes and shooting them at a close distance. So celebrities, Chancellor Scholz of Germany, Macron, and they're all supporting the women's movement in Iran. I wish they could do more, but we're waiting. And then, of course, someone wrote an anthem, and that anthem is for Baraye, and that won a Grammy a couple of weeks ago. So that song was stamped for the movement. It's played in every protest. It's played all over the place. It's been translated into 13 different languages, and a lot of artists have performed that. So this was good news back in December, that the more pressure we applied, the more different countries starting seeing the things that are happening in Iran, and Iran was removed from the UN Commission of the status of women, rightfully so. This was long overdue. Okay? The regime continues its attacks, and they're basically arresting anybody that comes in their way. And one thing that they're doing now, and they did for at least 3 weeks, and that was poisoning school children. Going to middle school, going to high school. More specifically, this is girls. More specifically, girls. There were not many boys that were poisoned. Can you guess why? Why girls? Why not have equal opportunity execution? I know that's kind of dark. It's dark comedy. Because the Islamic regime is afraid of women. Women make the Islamic regime's leaders lose a lot of sleep. They lose a lot of sleep. That's why every turn of the way, the first population that they abuse is the women population. The second one is Kurdish. The third one is the Baha'i faith. It's an offshoot of Islam. Women continue to fight. So what do people want? What's wrong with the Iranian people? They want a regime change. This regime cannot be trusted. This regime cannot be reformed. It's over. They are not able to reform themselves. Otherwise, they would have. We just need to have one last push so we can get them out of Iran. So someone might ask me, okay, so when the Islamic regime is gone, what do we get? Why do we need to support you? Why do Americans need to be behind the Iranian youth? Why does the United Nations need to be behind the Iranian youth? Well, Iranians will leave peace, will have peace in their country. Will try to create a democracy. Women will have equal rights. Women will no longer be second-class citizens. No more killing and poisoning of children. The biggest state of sponsor of terrorism will not exist anymore. The biggest state sponsor of terrorism will be gone. And the IRGC will dissolve. The Middle East region will be safer for all. For many years, for 4.5 decades almost, the Iranian regime has used and abused the Lebanese and the Palestinians to make them believe that the Iranian government is supporting them against Israel. False. Check me out on that. False. The Palestinians, the Lebanese, have not gotten anything in return. Anything. The oil price might stabilize. So we ask you to rise with the Iranian women. What they're asking is nothing out of the ordinary. What are they asking for? Equal rights, equal pay. Let me be. Don't meddle in my business. How many of you oppose that? How many of you oppose that? What can we do? Well, first, please separate the Iranians from the Islamic regime. They are forced to, if you leave the doors open, if you told the Iranians, hey, we're going to give you about $3,000 to each Iranian and we want you to leave the country, more than 2/3 of the people will leave immediately. Immediately. Because, excuse this word that I'm using, hell is better than living there under those circumstances. Support the Iranians in their fight for democracy and human rights. As I've said often, women's rights is human rights. If there's a violation of human rights anywhere in the world, it's a violation of human rights here in America, here in this auditorium. If somebody is innocently killed, or they were killed and or incarcerated for their views, I cannot remain silent. I don't care if they're from El Salvador, or Argentina, Honduras, Lebanon, Russia. How many people are incarcerated in Russia since the invasion of Ukraine? That's inhuman. I cannot remain silent. Just because I'm not Russian, that doesn't mean that the crimes against humanity that I see that Putin is putting, just basically dishing out on an hourly basis, we cannot remain silent. We just can't. Ask our representatives to create a pro-Iranian people policies. I personally have spoken to both of our senators in South Carolina, Senator Graham and Senator Scott. I personally have spoken with both senators in North Carolina. Verbally, they are for the Iranian movement. When it comes to action, they just can't push that green button to save their lives. Deport the Islamic regime's members and families. They are roaming around New York City, living the luxurious life that you and I cannot have. I have been working in the United States for 44 years. Sometimes 2 or 3 jobs while I'm still at the college and all of that. Okay? I cannot afford the kind of life that they have, the kind of cars they drive, the kind of cars that you drive. You were born here. All of the natural resources, all of the human resources in this country belongs to each and every American. Why is it that they can come and have the best penthouse in Manhattan, but me as a hard-working person, you as a hard-working person cannot afford that? That is blood money that they're bringing here. They don't deserve to live in America. And if I remain silent about that, to me that's tyranny. Ask politicians to abort their desire to negotiate with the IRE. How many times can you sit across from a terrorist and demand for them to be civilized? I am not the smartest person in this room, and I know that. Okay? We just cannot negotiate with terrorists. Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action is down, is flushed. It's been flushed. President Biden's still hoping to give that, rebirth. It's just not going to happen. It's not a matter of Democrat or Republican or Green Party or Socialist Party, whatever party. The Iranian government is incapable of negotiating over nuclear energy, period. How many times do we need to revisit this? There's an organization in Iran, in America, it's called NIAC, National Iranian American Council. This is the lobby, this is the front for the Iranian regime. They spend millions of dollars each year trying to influence congressmen and women in Washington, in localities, to say that, no, we can talk with Iran. Iran is a huge country. We've got oil, we've got natural resources. We can negotiate. Iranian government is incapable of negotiating. Declare the IRGC as a terrorist organization. Organize email writing campaigns, put pressure on government officials. Organize protest. Be the voice. Come join us at the protest in Charlotte. We'd love to have you. Organize such events as this. Education is a key to freedom. You know that. I don't need to tell you that. All of you are in college. All of you are professors here and administrators and such. Education is key. If you want to change the world, you've got to educate yourself first. So your support is needed and much appreciated. I believe our silence means violence. So I want you to leave this room with this following, and that is, What did we learn today that we did not know about the Iranian people and the Iranian regime? What are we going to do about it? First as humans, then as Americans. I don't know how many of you have read our Constitution. I have. I don't claim that I understand all of it. I don't claim that I practice all of it. But it's a beautifully written Constitution. It's absolutely wonderful. So if you believe in that Constitution, it is going to, if you believe in any kind of, any religion, anything that is for humans, by humans, you just cannot remain silent. How can we influence this movement as men, as women, as them? How can we influence the world to become a better place? I'm talking specifically now to the younger audience. The world is in the palm of your hands. The world is in the palm of your hands. You can do whatever you want with it. I've been working for a long time. Whatever I've accomplished, all my mistakes, all the failures that I've had, they are what they are. You see these wonderful educators around you that pour their love and knowledge into you every day. You got a beautiful thing going for you. Are you in the position to allow gross violations of human rights in any place in the world? What has become of humanity? Where did love go? Where did love go? If I surveyed each and every one of you, I said, what is the biggest human value that you cherish? Love will probably come top three, excuse me. How can we spread love around? What is the enemy of love? We think is the Islamic Republic of Iran for Iranians. Love shall not be practiced. You cannot kiss your wife, your partner on the street. You cannot kiss them. It's part of that song that I played for you. What are you going to do? If you can't or don't want to do anything for the Iranian people, that's fine. The message of human rights is so vast, so deep. We can exercise that here. This is a beautiful nation. We need to keep it as beautiful by injecting more humanity, more love on a daily basis. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak with you. If you have any questions, comments, if you have any disagreements with me, I would be more than happy to listen to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this informative and touching presentation. I was having tears in my eyes. I was sitting there. So before I take any questions from you, besides the normal channel news that we all follow, if you use any social media or Telegram app, we have a channel that is called Call for Revolution in Iran. I personally manage that channel with a group of people, and we post the news that is fresh and hot out of Iran. So please follow us. Now, I'd be more than happy to take any questions that you might have from Dr. Mazari.
Or comments.
Or comments. Suggestions.
This is something of a suggestion. For several years I've been following a social media page called My Stealthy Freedom, which has featured Iranian women for several years taking off their scarves. And that's how I've been following. I mean, that's how I knew what was happening in Iran before the news was even picking it up. And I recommend it highly. They're still posting daily.
Yeah.
So it's a good resource that I knew of before it was never entered my consciousness.
That's an awesome suggestion. So you like your suggestions, like we kind of like show the resources for that?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Yeah, have like more resources for people who want to like really know what's going on. That's an awesome suggestion. Thank you so much. Anything else? Yes.
I did check one thing.
Yes.
Following your advice, and it seems that the U.S. State Department did designate the IRGC as a terrorist organization in April 2019, I think, under the Trump administration. I don't know for sure that Biden has not reversed that. I don't think he would reverse that until he wants the Iranian nuclear deal back, and that would be in exchange for removing that. So I think the U.S. does designate it as a terrorist organization. Canada designated it as a terrorist organization in October 2022. So what else can the Biden administration practically do that it's not already doing?
Both facts are facts. What was that? When you make up a fact, what is that called? Alternative facts. This was not, these were real facts. Facts are facts. That is correct. So my emphasis was more on the European Parliament, because Germany is the largest economic partner in the entire world, even more than the Chinese. So we're hoping that if the European Parliament designates that, then that is the end of the Iranian regime. So what can the Biden administration do? The Biden administration should stay away from zigzagging, one day supporting the Iranian people, the next day, talking about sitting across the table to talk to them, because we've been actually calling them. I personally have been calling the White House. They're very courteous. Sometimes they listen after 7 times of calling, and it's fantastic. We want to put pressure on them that we just can't take a line and just go with it. There's nothing that the Iranian regime can do for the Iranians. There's nothing that the Iranian regime can do for the world, for the Americans. The Iranian regime has deliberately, through terrorist activities, has killed more Americans than any other country in the past 44 years. Okay? Again, it's vast and deep in Iraq. I've had students that as soon as they know that I'm Iranian, they kind of step back. They're coming from Iraq, they're military. And then as soon as they understand that we're on the same page, then they're ready to join the movement because they've experienced it firsthand. So I believe that the American people are very kind people. There is a soft spot in every American that I've come across. So I'm thinking that after 44 years of this kind of experience, it's pretty true. We have more NGOs in America, 3 times more in America than the total world, NGOs in the world. So this shows that this is a good country. So maybe we need to put pressure on the Biden administration, say, designate a line, go with it. There was a Nowruz celebration a few days ago at the White House, and when President Biden started talking about Iran, his eyes teared up. Okay? I go on the record, so don't hate me, please. I voted for Biden. Okay? So I'm not an anti-Biden, anti-Democrat, or whatever. Okay? His tears didn't mean anything to me, because his advisors are still trying to negotiate with the Iranians behind the scenes. I understand these are politics, right? But I'm thinking that the Iranian people are getting killed as we speak, so take a straight line. Just say, no, we're not going to support the Iranians. So the Iranians would know what to do. I'm not going to wait for you. That's fine. Just take a clear stand. Are you or are you not for human rights in Iran? It's not a difficult question to answer. Be it you, be it me, be it Biden, the Biden administration, or the Germany, or whoever. It doesn't matter. The European population, people have been supporting this movement for the past 6-7 months. But the governments, they're zigging and zagging. Macron has come and met with the opposition leaders, and behind the scenes has set and signed a multi-billion-dollar contract with the Iranian regime. So if you are a mother sitting in the corner of your house, scared because your daughter, the teenage daughter, just left home, you don't know if she's going to come back, and you see that on the news, how would you feel? It's simple. By the way, you have beautiful voice for announcement. It's awesome. I like that. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
On the slide before, 2020 slide said that 1,500 people were killed, and then in 2020, only 150 people were killed. Do you think that's due to COVID, or that's just what the numbers are?
Well, it just depended on what people were doing and how vast they poured onto the streets. Because each time, every time people pour to the streets, the regime becomes smarter. Wouldn't you say that? So they are able to they're able to control the situation a lot faster. But since September, they have not been able to do that. I am sure they're sitting right now and looking at every computer database or whatever to see what is the best tactic they can have against the protesters. Okay? So that was just an occasional. But just like they killed 1,500 people then, but they've only killed 600 since, September. So that really is not a great indicator of how vicious this regime can be. Any other questions? Comments? Yes, ma'am.
How will the Islamic regime will end? And the other question is, where they came from?
Repeat that again.
The Islamic regime, when will they end? Or let me say that, how will they end? Okay?
Yes.
The other question is, where they came from? The origin of them. Who
Well,
are they?
well, Iran lost its Zoroastrian religion 14 centuries ago, 1,400 years ago. Iran used to be like what the United States is now. It was a land of opportunities back then. So the Islamic leaders thought that one of the nations that we need to get hold of is Iran, because they have universities, they have medicine, they have all of that. And we can say, this architecture, that's Islamic architecture. How can architecture be Islamic, right? You can have Islamic writing in it, but it's not Islamic. So this goes back about 1,400 years. But more recently, it came to life in 1952 when the United States created a coup d'etat to topple the national government. That was very short-lived. And from there on, they decided that the Ayatollah Khomeini is the one that we need to bring to power. They created a situation where he would be exiled and he would be loved by millions of true believers. They returned him in 1979, and they've been in power ever since. That's their origin. In fast forward, if I had a crystal ball to tell you when these guys would be gone, I'd say tonight. I would want them to be gone 44 years ago, right? But that's not possible. So what do we need to do? We cannot, Dr. Bastani and I cannot sleep well at night without having done 1, 2, 10 things that we're capable of doing to bring peace to the Middle East, to bring tranquility to the nation of Iran, to bring justice, to bring democracy. And my beautiful sister, that's going to be soon. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. And if that happens, I will invite each and every one of you to a celebration that we will have in Uptown Charlotte. I've already got the location. It can hold 8,000 people. COVID or not. What?
Okay, I hope so. Because
Yes.
they will take over, like Israel will get out from Palestine.
Yes.
It will affect us.
Yeah. A great man said, I have a dream. Martin Luther King. So I've kind of borrowed that from, I have a dream that one day Iran will be a free nation, that all men and women will live equally, and Iran would be as beautiful as we have always envisioned it. If you visit Iran, they're among the most hospitable, most loving people that you've ever seen. And I'm really not saying that because I was born there. I'm not saying that. I think I'm a little prejudiced, but that's beside the point. People are people. Governments, they get in power, they want to manipulate things, they want to control things so they can push their agendas, regardless of their party affiliation. That's what politics are. But if they just let people live their lives, that is what I dream of. And I used to say that I want to be alive until Iran becomes free. I have actually revised that. And I'm thinking it's going to happen before I retire from higher education. Any other questions?
If there is no other question from him, I would like to thank you all again for joining us. So please continue supporting us. And as we always end these types of events, well, women love freedom. Thank you so much.